Welcome, Jitsuma. It's wonderful for you to be joining us on this very special day. We have friends with us that participated in the Lojong training cycle, and they submitted questions for you, and they're very enthusiastic, and they have proven to be very, what do you call it, diligent in their practice. Some of them are in the first phase, some in the second, some have completed the program. And in this case, our friend Jamie will be presenting the questions that we thought would be more helpful to the general audience, and we'll go through them as much as we can. If you don't mind, I would like to begin with a few prayers to set the right motivation. So if the team could please project the prayers, we'll say them in English, and then your interpreter will be guiding you in Spanish. Entonces, Alfonso, puedes ahí. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Sangha, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of practicing, giving, and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Sangha, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of practicing, giving, and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Sangha, I take refuge until I reach enlightenment. By the merit of practicing, giving, and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all beings. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be parted from the happiness which is free from suffering. May they live in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion to all, without distance or close. The ground is perfumed with scented water and strewn with flowers, Mount Sumeru, adorned with the four continents, with the sun and the moon. I offer this, visualized in the Buddha realms. Through this merit, may all beings enjoy the pure realms. I entreat you to turn the wheel of Dharma, of the greater and common smaller vehicle, according to the inclinations and capacities of all sentient beings. Very good. Very good. So now, Jamie, please guide us with questions and answers.
Thank you so much, Lamala. Thank you so much, Suma. It's such an honor to pose questions on behalf of the community to you. So thank you so much for this privilege. I'll begin with our first question from Eduardo from Zaragoza, Spain. Eduardo says, intellectually, I understand the poisons or veils that prevent us from seeing the reality of all phenomena, producing attachment to those things we like, aversion to those things we dislike, and therefore suffering. So my question is, how can I enjoy the pleasant, good things in the relative world without falling into a toxic relationship with attachment? Is this ever possible in samsara? Thank you very much.
Well, I mean, the point is that, of course, every sensory stimuli from eyes, nose, taste, touch, and also mental stimuli will automatically generate a I like, I don't like response. In other words, it will be considered as pleasant or unpleasant. This is just a part of the natural process. It just happens like that. In accordance with Abhidharma and accordance with modern science, that is automatic. So, but the point is that, of course, we would enjoy pleasant food rather than unpleasant food. I mean, you know, as normal human beings. The point is always just not to get attached or cling to the experience, right? So, for example, you know, if, you know, the mind should sort of be like Teflon, you know, non-stick. It's the sticking bit which is the problem, not the, you know, recognizing it as being pleasant or unpleasant. So, for example, if you like chocolate cake, and you go to a place which every time serves very nice chocolate cake, and you really look forward to chocolate cake, and you get there and they say, oh, so sorry, today no chocolate cake. We have very nice carrot cake. You don't really like carrot cake, but the point is, how do we respond? Are we bitterly disappointed and upset and put in a bad mood because there's no chocolate cake, right? Or do we think, well, okay, no chocolate cake, so what? And it doesn't matter, you know, and then maybe we even like to eat some carrot cake instead. The point is that we have to look at our responses, right? So really, in general, when things are going well, that's nice. And when things are not going so well, that's okay too, right? So it's just allowing and accepting whatever happens and not getting caught by it. It's the getting caught bit, which is the problem, not the enjoying something, right? The enjoying something is fine, as long as we don't always have to enjoy something and get upset when we find nothing to enjoy. Do you understand? So, you know, all of these Dharma instructions, it's about not getting uptight about things and just allowing things to flow nicely without grasping. It's the grasping that's the problem.
Thank you so much. The next question is from Lizette from Hungary. Dear and respected teacher, you are an inspiration and a light in our path. According to your experience, what would be your advice for those young people like me who are embarking on the path of Dharma and wish to live in a meaningful life and be able to die without regrets? Thank you so much for existing and for your wisdom.
I mean, that's a huge question. But I would say, firstly, just try to cultivate a good heart with bodhicitta. You know, I mean, that's the most important thing, to cultivate a good heart. And I would suggest that since most people are very busy, they have many, you know, they have a very full life already, to, you know, keep the practice simple and try to integrate it with your daily life so that the daily life itself becomes your practice. A lot of these questions are dealing with this problem of how to integrate Dharma with the daily life. So that's what we're trying to do, you know, so that it's not like this is Dharma and this is daily life and they're looking at each other but not making friends. We have to, you know, marry the two together. And so I would say practice basic shamatha to make the mind more calm. And it's very important to learn to become more and more aware and more present, right? Normally our minds run off in all directions. Learning how to bring the mind back again and again to what we are doing in the moment, what is happening in the moment, instead of running around all over the place, right? So not getting carried away by all our thoughts and feelings and emotions, but learning how to observe our thoughts and emotions without being completely submerged by them, right? So this is a very, very crucial practice, that informal practice through shamatha you can learn. We can all learn that. And then how to cultivate that in daily life more and more. Whenever we remember, we try to bring ourselves back into the present. You know, what is my body doing right now? Am I sitting, standing, walking? What am I doing? What is my mind doing right now? What am I thinking, right? And becoming more and more conscious of where we are, what we are doing, what we are thinking, our emotional state, and so forth. You know, this is very important. And then using the daily life again to cultivate the paramita, right? I mean, your group is called paramita, and this is very important in daily life. So many of these paramita, like ethics, patience, generosity, and so forth, you need other people, right? I mean, when you're sitting in a formal practice by yourself or with others, it's very, all these things, you know, don't pertain. But when we are dealing with our family, our workplace, other people all around us, this is a wonderful opportunity to practice, right? Especially when people annoy us, you're doing Lojong. When people annoy us, instead of getting upset and irritated and frustrated, then we can recognize that they are helping us on the path by being an object for us to learn to be more forbearing, more tolerant, more patient. And basic ethics is, of course, always very, very important. Being generous, not just with things and money, but with time. And, you know, it's so many, everybody we meet, everything we do is an opportunity for practice, right? So, but very simple, very, very not high, but just right here on the ground, you know, how to be kind, how to be more thoughtful, more considerate. Sorry. So, in other words, practice loving awareness throughout the day, right? Not just being aware, but with a good heart, right? It's very important. And then I would say find a practice, a formal practice that feels right, you know, that you feel comfortable with, that is meaningful for you, because different people are different. Some people like very elaborate visualizations. Some people like simple visualizations. Some people don't like visualizing at all. You know, different people are different. And so what feels good for you, and then deepen that practice by repeating again and again. And I would say, always remember that we ourselves and all the other beings have Buddha nature. We have this basic goodness and this primordial non-dual awareness. We are the nature of wisdom and compassion. And we shouldn't forget that, because that's what we're trying to recognize in our practice, is our true nature. So that will keep us very busy, right? Just trying to be more conscious, more present, and more good-hearted.
Thank you so much. Our next question is from Sarah from Landonneau, France. Thank you so much for coming to this world to enlighten it. Your life is a legend, a clear example of bravery.
All the crazy bits. Get to the question.
Okay. How can we be brave and courageous in the path? Infinite thanks.
Well, again, like Tara, we all have Buddha nature, you know, and that we should not forget. We shouldn't always, you know, we are not who we think we are. And we should always remember that we really identify with all the wrong things. I mean, it's useful in everyday life, but in the basis of our heart, we should remember that, you know, we shouldn't identify, we shouldn't believe that we're just ordinary, boring, stupid human beings. We should remember our own potential as Buddhas and the potential of all the other beings that we meet. You know, when you look at them, look into their eyes and see their Buddha nature. This is very important. Then, you know, we don't need to, when we study Lojong, you know, the whole point in Lojong is to take difficulties onto the path. That's the main message, is to take everything which happens to us and bring it onto the path, right? So in this way, it's very practical. So, yeah, you know, I think this whole thing about you know, we have this voice inside us which discourages us and tells us we can't do it, or that we're not capable of anything, we're worthless, and so forth. And then we think, oh, this is too difficult, I can't do it. Other people can do it, but me, I can't do it. You know, when everybody else sits down, they immediately go into samadhi. But me, I have too many thoughts. You know, I have monkey mind. Nobody else has monkey mind. And so we listen to this voice inside us, which discourages us all the time and tells us that we can't do something and that we're not capable. And so we have to look at that inner critic, straight at it, not just push it down, look at it and listen to it. And then say, I don't believe you. You know, if we keep pushing it down, it will come back up again. But if we lift it up and say, okay, what are you saying? And repeat to ourselves what they just said and say, no, that's not true. I don't believe you. You're not that. And to understand it, these are just habitual negative thoughts, which we probably picked up in childhood or before. And it's not true. This is the point. If we are able to look at our mind, we can see that our thoughts are just impulses of energy. They are not just because we think it, therefore it's real. That's not true at all, you know? So when we have these negative thoughts, which you know, cause us to have low self-esteem or fear or, you know, prevent us from going onwards, we should challenge it. You know, and say, no, it's not true. And we could practice loving kindness towards ourselves as well as towards others, to, you know, make friends with ourselves and cultivate our own inner courage. So we have to work on the negative in our mind, which is our daily critic, right? And just, you know, recognize that what its message is not real, its message is not true, and it's just creating an obstacle on the path.
Thank you so much. Our next question is from Ana Cristina from San Jose, Costa Rica. Since faith or conviction is one of the key qualities to stay and move forward on the path, and on the other hand, doubt is what paralyzes us and keeps us away from the path, what would be the best way to address doubt through our Lojong practice or through any other practice?
Well, I think it's important to recognize that Buddhism has always allowed us to have doubts and to question, right? Maybe that makes it different from many other religious traditions, but you are allowed to gain genuine faith. Your genuine faith must be based on a firm conviction, right? That this is true. So therefore, in you know, you start by hearing, that means like studying, reading, and so forth. Then the next stage is to question it, to investigate, to, you know, do I understand that? Do I believe that? Is that right? And really go into the teaching until we do gain an inner conviction, in which case we can put it into practice, right? We meditate. My Lama said, first you hear it, then you think about it, then you become it, right? So it's always very much encouraged that we question things first, always. And my Lama said that if we have strong doubts about something, then we don't always have to say, no, that's not true because I don't believe it. Other great masters have said it is true, but we can put it aside for a time and study, practice more, then take it out and look at it again, you know, to see if now we understand it more deeply and or not, you know. Because sometimes our doubts are just due to the fact that we don't have the necessary knowledge, right? So we don't know yet. But he also said, my Lama also said that everything you read in books is not true. And I mean, for example, you know, well, according to Abhidharma, the world is flat with Mount Meru in the middle. It's written in the texts, and the Tibetans all believed it. They were quite surprised to hear any other version. But maybe it's not, you know, maybe the world isn't flat and there isn't a Meru wherever you look, because that isn't the way, that was the geography of India in those days, right? That's all. So it's good to doubt, right? And to investigate and to see for ourselves, you know, this objective reality. Is this true or not true, right? We shouldn't be afraid to doubt. I mean, it's okay. But it's just that sometimes we doubt because we are not used to certain ideas which are not part of our culture. And then we say, no, that's not true, just because I don't happen to believe it. You understand? Then it becomes an obstacle, right? If we don't believe something just because it doesn't feel comfortable with our cultural way that we've been brought up to think. So this is why we should say, when there are certain important ideas that we don't understand, right? Well, right now, I don't know. Maybe it's true, maybe it's not true. Let's put it aside, study, practice more, think about it more, and then eventually we will come to a decision about it. But the important thing is not to, that's perfectly okay. That's the important thing to understand. That is perfectly okay to have hesitations and doubts and to question. She shouldn't worry about that. I mean, it's perfectly part of the process, you know? And many lamas have said when they were students, especially growing up in the modern world, they questioned a lot of very fundamental ideas, especially things like rebirth and karma and things like this, which you wouldn't think that traditional people would question, but they do. And they did exactly this, that they questioned it. They weren't sure because, you know, modern Western science doesn't say anything. But they put it aside, and then gradually through their own experience, they realized that so many of these things which they did have doubts about initially were very, very likely to be actually quite accurate. And that, you know, the West doesn't know everything. Science doesn't know everything yet. It's trying, it's getting there slowly, but it hasn't arrived yet.
Thank you. Our next question from Elisa from Valencia, Spain. In a day during which you dedicate 30 minutes to meditation and the rest of the time is dedicated to taking care of your family, home, and job, how can it become a day dedicated to Dharma? Thank you.
Well, this is, as I said, again, you know, the important thing is to recognize that our daily life is our practice. It's important not to think that, you know, when we are sitting on our cushion doing formal practice, or if we go to a Dharma center or listen to Dharma Zooms or read Dharma books, that's Dharma. And then every day dealing with your kids, dealing with your workplace, dealing with everyday activities, cooking, cleaning, whatever you're doing, that's just worldly activity, right? So then you make this division between Dharma is here and everyday life is here. But so this is very, very important to recognize that actually our daily life is our practice, right? It's very, very important to recognize this. The real practice of Dharma comes during our daily life, not when we're sitting nicely on our cushion, right? That's just a little bit of support. The real practice is when you open the door and go out and look at your family. So we try to cultivate, as I say, this loving awareness during the day as much as possible. And we use that time also for cultivating the basic paramita. You know, there's our ethics and patience and generosity and effort and, you know, trying to keep our mind present within ourselves and not running all over the place, right? As much as possible. If there is an opportunity to do like a day-long or week-long retreat where you completely just do the focus on the formal practice, that's very, very good. It's like recharging your batteries, right? But still, make the firm commitment when we wake up every morning. The first thought should be to dedicate the whole day to training our minds, right? To be more present and aware and remembering that all the beings we meet wish for happiness. That sets our motivation. You know, how can we bring a little happiness to all the beings we meet during the day? Even just smiling or saying good morning, you know, can change somebody's whole mental attitude in that day. If they're feeling a bit down, somebody smiles at them, says good morning. Oh, good morning. You know, they feel better. So also cultivating this basic awareness and mindfulness when you're walking, to know we're walking, when we're sitting, to know we're sitting, and standing, eating, that we're eating, and so forth. Because normally the problem is not the walking, the sitting, the eating, but the fact that our mind is not thinking even that we are doing these things. It's thinking everything else under the sun, right? We're walking along and we're caught up in the past, we're caught up in the future, we're roving around in the present. We're not, the one thing we are not aware of is that we're walking, right? Climbing stairs, whatever. Just to notice the body, the feeling, the position as we move and so forth, brings us back into the present. During the day, whenever we can remember it, just especially if we're getting agitated or tired, to bring the attention back to breathing in, breathing out, right? Just for a few moments. You don't have to sit, you know, very formally, now I'm meditating. You know, you just sit, but you bring the attention back into the present moment, which, as you know, is the only time we have. So stay present, connect with the breath whenever we can remember it. Try not to multitask. Please. Keep the attention on one thing at a time, even if it's only for a minute. Whatever we're doing at that moment, just give our complete attention to it. I mean, even neuroscientists now are saying that it's extremely stressful for the mind to multitask. I read an article in the Economist. It was not a Buddhist magazine, it was the Economist, which is a financial magazine, on the dangers of multitasking. That neuroscientists have said that all these companies which make them people multitask, this is the major cause of stress. It is not because they accomplish more work, but because the brain is not set up to try to do too many things all at the same time. And what happens is it gets burned out very quickly. It is inefficient, makes mistakes. The thinking is very superficial and not creative. And in general, it doesn't work. And this is why all these big, you know, so many of these big organizations like Google and Microsoft and these people, Apple, are training their staff to be more mindful, right? They do run mindfulness courses, not because they want them to be liberated. They could care less about liberation, but they would like them to be more efficient and not burn out, right? So even on a worldly level, mindfulness is very, very helpful, and people are recognizing that. And Buddhist mindfulness is about, it's called right mindfulness, which means that it should be motivated, our attention should be motivated by the correct kind of roots. not anger. I mean, you could being very mindful of killing somebody, right? That is not regarded as being right mindfulness because it's based on negative roots. But when we have positive roots, then that is considered to be, the Buddha said this is the one path to liberation, to learn how to be aware. And since we have only a short time to do formal practice, we have to take that training in being aware into our daily life. Otherwise, it's never going to transform our mind. And the mind then feels much lighter, much, much happier, So we have to look on our daily life as this is our practice, right? And all those Lojong precepts, to take them on to the path, taking difficulties, taking unpleasant people, dealing with all the things which happen during every day, and recognizing this is our practice. This is the practice, not how many mantras we say, how we deal with our day-to-day experience and how we use that to cultivate the mind, train the mind. I mean, first we have to tame the mind, right? Get it quietened down a bit, more clear, more focused, more amenable to practice, because the mind has to want to practice, right? So then we tame the mind by our sitting, and then we train the mind to begin to have more positive responses to different people and circumstances. And in this way, by training the mind, we transform the mind from being always annoyed and irritated and frustrated or greedy and jealous and all these. We transform the mind into its very positive side. We become more kind. We rejoice more in the happiness of others. We are more concerned with bringing, harmony around us. And in that way, as our mind becomes trained to become more clear, more calm, more aware, then we have the opportunity to transcend the mind, to recognize our primordial awareness. And so our whole life becomes a Dharma practice, right? And then, of course, we will die with no regrets. Why would we have regrets? We've done something positive for ourselves and for others. And our whole life is an expression of our Dharma understanding and brought happiness to people because our family will appreciate it, our work colleagues, people we meet, and so forth. And it lightens everybody's burden a little bit. So, yeah, this is the way to go. Make your life your practice.
Thank you. Our next question from Pia from Santiago, Chile. During the process of spiritual development, we must cultivate and maintain a healthy self-esteem. What is the importance of this self-esteem, particularly in the process of acquiring a pure vision of reality?
All right. So again, I repeat, it is very important to remember and recognize that we all have Buddha nature, right? That means everybody, not just humans, animals, insects, birds, fish, all beings who have consciousness have ultimately Buddha nature. Buddha nature just means this very natural awareness, right? It's not doesn't mean little Buddha sitting inside you, It means our natural non-dual awareness, which everybody has. And that's the sky, right? That's the sky. And then the rest is all the clouds. So everybody possesses that. Humans have the potential because of our seeming intelligence to be able to recognize that more easily. But it could very well be that many animals recognize it and don't make a big deal out of it. They're not talking about it and studying philosophy, but maybe they intuitively understand. They're much more close to their true nature than human beings who are very trapped up in our mental processes. Anyway, so what does it mean, Buddha nature? Buddha nature means the clear and empty nature of our primordial non-dual awareness, right? Which is always there. It's always, always, always there. This is our true nature. And it's said to be like the sky, because, you know, the sky is everywhere, space is everywhere, it's all encompassing, nowhere that space is not. But you can't grasp it, you can't see it, you can't taste it, touch it, right? But everything exists because there is space. So as far as the sky is concerned, often the sky is covered with thick clouds, and we identify with the clouds. That's our problem, right? We only see the clouds and we think sky means clouds. In India in monsoon, we understand that because it's all clouds, right? For months and months. And so that's what we think the sky is. And then one day we're looking and the clouds part and there's the sky. Oh, the sky is not clouds, the sky is sky. Fantastic. Ah, look how beautiful, blue, clear. Boom, the clouds come back. But now we know. Now we know the clouds are not the whole picture. They're hiding, they're covering the true situation, which is the sky. So likewise, our thoughts and feelings and emotions, which we identify with, right? We identify with all our memories and our personality and our likes and dislikes and everything, and our hopes and our fears. This is who I am. And this is the source of our problems, right? But one day, if we are really practicing awareness on the mind and awareness of awareness, then suddenly it all opens up and we see, oh, there's a whole level of consciousness which interconnects us with all beings instead of our ordinary conceptual everyday consciousness, which separates us from beings, right? There's me and there's you. Now we recognize that actually we're all united in the very deep level, not just human beings, but plants, trees, water, everything. We're all, it's like a big web in which we're all interconnected. And normally we're not able to recognize that, which is why we destroy the planet and we destroy each other, right? It's because of our ignorance. And this is very sad, as we all know. So therefore, in the Tantra Vajrayana schools, they practice what is called the pride of the deity. That means that you recognize that your true nature is the deity. For example, if you were doing Chenrezig meditation or Tara meditation, it's not that Chenrezig and Tara are out there. We recognize that they are an expression of our true nature. We are Tara. We are Chenrezig. I mean, our problem when we practice is that we don't believe that. You know, we think we're going to pretend to be Tara. Now I'm going to pretend to be Chenrezig. But I mean, actually, Tara is our true nature. She's just pretending to be us, right? But really and truly, if we only saw it, we would recognize we are Tara. Of course we are. Everybody is, not just I'm Tara and you're an ordinary sentient being. I mean, all beings, this is the mandala of Tara. If we could only see with pure vision. We all have impure vision. This is our problem. We don't see things how they really are. So therefore, the path, of course, the Dharma path is to transcend our ordinary ego, right? So our ordinary sense of me and mine is ignorance, right? This is our fundamental reason why we're trapped in samsara, right? But nonetheless, at the beginning and for a long way along the path, we do need to cultivate a healthy, well-balanced sense of self. It's no good saying, right, you know, we have to be egoless. So now I have no more ego, right? Who is saying I have no more ego? You know, I mean, the ego is saying, right now I'm going to be egoless. because that's the only level of consciousness which we have access to at this time. So the first step, therefore, is to create a well-balanced, healthy sense of self. And so the Buddha, for example, recommended that not only we do shamatha, which makes the mind quiet and calm and more focused and clear, but he also said to do the meditations, the Brahma Viharas, or the immeasurable meditations on loving kindness, compassion, rejoicing, and so forth. And we start by sending those feelings to ourselves, right? The Buddha said, first you send to yourself, may I be well and happy. May I be peaceful and at my ease, right? May I be free from suffering. Now, he's not sending it to our Buddha nature, right? Because our Buddha nature is already loving kindness and compassion and wisdom. It doesn't need more thoughts about that, right? So who are we sending this, may I be well and happy to? We're sending it to our little ego, which feels kind of overpowered by, what all the things we have to do to become good Dharma practitioners. So it says, it's okay, you can do it. May you be well and happy. I'm so sorry you're suffering. May you be free from suffering. We encourage ourselves, we make friends with ourselves, because it's the ego that is going to walk the path to overcoming the ego. You understand? So we have to have a good, strong companion who is going to stand upright and say, okay, I'm going to walk on the path towards liberation. So, it's not about ego bashing. It's not about flagellating ourselves all the time. It's about developing a strong inner confidence that we can accomplish. Others have accomplished, why cannot I? Yes, I can do that. Come on, we can do this. And so this is very important, even Shantideva said that, while pride and arrogance are defilements, we shouldn't be proud and arrogant, but self-confidence is essential for the path. We'll never do anything if we don't believe we can do it. And who's going to do it? Right now, it's our ordinary conventional self, right? So we make friends, right? We are not, if we have a weak ego, it's not going to work, right? I think this is very important for people to understand. Sometimes I say it's like if you break your leg, then the leg, you can't do anything with it, right? We can hardly walk. It's in a big cast. If anybody hits it, ow, 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 it hurts. We're always thinking, oh, my poor leg, my poor leg, my poor leg. But it's a useless leg. It's not getting us anywhere. But when the leg heals, then it can run, skip, and jump. We're not giving any thought to our leg. I'm not thinking my leg all the day, because my leg's perfectly okay, right? If somebody hits it, ouch, but then we let it go, it doesn't hurt. And so that's like the ego. When the sense of self is very weak and sick, then we're always thinking me, 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 poor me. Oh, I'm suffering so much. Oh, everything's about me. Other people, what they're saying, what they're doing, it's all about me. Right? And we suffer. But if our sense of self is strong and healthy, and we're at peace with ourselves, we're not thinking about ourselves. We're thinking about others, right? So therefore, the Buddha started by saying, get your mind together. To have good shamatha, the mind has to be well-balanced, healthy, and strong. And at the same time, to cultivate these qualities of loving kindness and compassion and rejoicing, which means appreciating the goodness in ourselves. And then, of course, the goodness in others. But first, we have to heal ourselves too. We can't just always be thinking all these other mother sentient beings. If we ourselves are in pain, right? We are also a mother sentient being and the one we're responsible for. So we have to make ourselves healthy so that we can easily walk the path towards benefiting all others. So really, it's very important to look at that side of the Dharma and grow in our own confidence that we can accomplish the path, because inwardly we are very feeling strong and healthy.
Thank you. Our next question is from Ruth Maris from San Juan, Puerto Rico. How can we find the middle path between the practice of verbal and mental silence while avoiding falling into the extreme of disconnecting from others?
Okay, so again, I think we have to remember that the Buddha taught not only shamatha, for mental calmness and honing our awareness and our attention, but he also taught the Brahma Viharas, loving kindness and compassion and so forth. And the two usually go together, right? You do some shamatha to get the mind quiet and calm and focused. Then you also do these practices for opening up the heart, right? Because it's very, very important that we do feel genuine love and caring and compassion for others as well as for ourselves. So therefore, we continue to practice during the day also this loving awareness, right? Not just awareness, but with an open heart to recognize that all beings are there. Everyone we meet has problems. If it's not one thing, it's something else. I mean, you can sit in a bus or a train or a plane or anywhere, and you can think all these people have worries. They're worrying about their job. They're worrying about their family. They're worrying about their health. They're worrying about the world. But they're all, how sad. May they be well and happy. May they be free from suffering. May their problems be resolved. I mean, just open the heart to recognize all these beings. Most of them have no refuge. I mean, at least if one has the Dharma, one has a refuge, and an inner refuge, an outer refuge. Mostly they have no refuge, right? It's very hard for them. They don't know if you lose some, like just today, I met this woman. She came from a long distance, actually, many thousands of miles. And her husband had died of COVID, and he was only 40. And she has a little daughter. And she said she was completely, just absolutely bereft. She didn't know what to do. And then she read, somebody gave her Sogyal Rinpoche's Tibetan Book of Living and Dying. And she said that was just so helpful. That was such a balm to her heart, because it deals with the stages that you go through when you die. And she felt she could follow her husband on his stages. And after that, she started practicing and studying Dharma. And she said, it was just such an incredible refuge for her. What would she have done without it at that time? And most people don't even have that refuge, I mean, so it's, we can smile at others, right? I mean, it's no big deal. You smile, yeah. I mean, even Shantideva, who is my always example of being a very strict, says smile at people, you don't frown, smile. Even when we're maintaining silence in a retreat situation, we can still, if we happen to glance at somebody, give them a little smile, and they feel better, And we include all beings in our prayers. We don't forget that we are practicing for the sake of everybody. We're not just practicing for ourselves, right? Why are we doing all this, right? It's so that we can gain the inner wisdom and understanding to be able to help other beings, to liberate all beings. This is why we're practicing, not just to liberate ourselves, right? So our heart should be connected with beings, even when we're just sitting, right? So, we are indeed, on a path which includes all beings, even animals and insects and birds and fish and everybody. All beings are traveling with us, right? So there's no question. Our heart should be open, right? To benefit and happiness of others. I mean, honestly and truthfully, at least our practice should make us nicer people. And if our family don't think we're getting nicer, there's something wrong.
Thank you. Our next question is from Claudia from Buenos Aires. Time and time again, I find myself caught between the need for praise and my false modesty. I know that the origin of this duality comes from low self-esteem. I try to be transparent with myself, but I feel like this arrogance will make it impossible for me to progress on the Dharma path. Can you please give me some clues?
So again, I think first of all, we need to develop a good sense of humor, right? And not take ourselves too seriously. Really and truly, one of the problems with so many Dharma students is that they take it all very, very seriously. So just look in the mirror and smile at yourself. Laugh in a nice way, in a kind way, not a nasty way, but just laugh with yourself, really lighten up, right? I mean, we all have faults. We all have problems. Everybody, who doesn't? Yeah. If it's not this problem, then it's something else. I mean, we all have something to work on. That's the path, right? So again, I think she should be practicing the 4 immeasurables, loving kindness and compassion and rejoicing and impartiality. Make friends with herself, right? I mean, if she feels that the reason why she acts sometimes rather arrogant is because underneath she has low self-esteem, then make friends, right? I mean, one of the things is that, yes, we have to acknowledge our faults, right? We all have faults and we should be clear in our mind what our faults are, but we also need to appreciate our goodness. The third of after loving kindness and compassion comes what is called mudita. Mudita in Tibetan Gawa means to rejoice. It means to rejoice in the goodness. Don't just always focus on what's wrong. Yes, I get angry and I have a short temper, but I'm really quite generous. And so appreciate that, being generous brings you happiness, and be more generous, right? While at the same time trying to deal with your anger problem, right? So you get more balanced, right? It doesn't, nothing to be low self-esteem about. We're all Buddha. So, I mean, we're all a mixture. Everybody has good parts and bad parts, and that's part of cultivate the goodness and to work with our problems. So when you see yourself needing praise, I mean, she says, she wants people to praise her up. Okay, recognize that, right? Recognize that need. Be aware of it. Accept that. That's how you're feeling, I mean, and then just let it go with a smile, right? Okay, right now, I really want people to praise me. I can see that in myself. Oh, come on, we've done this one before. And then laugh with yourself, not laugh at yourself, but laugh with yourself, right? I mean, so this is part of the process on the path. It's not an obstacle, right? It's a learning process, right? That we become more and more clear about where our sticky points are. And then we work with that, but with good intent, with humor, right? Not making it into a big heavy thing. I think it's very important to keep the Dharma light, not insincere. Of course, we're very, very sincere, but we're not serious, right? It's a bit like going into church and everybody has to look very somber, right? But why? I'm sure God has a good sense of humor. It looks like he does. Lighten up.
Thank you. Our next question is from Sagnite from Puebla, Mexico. When I see a person who's committed a harmful action and a short time afterwards, something bad happens to him, deep down inside, I feel happy. I don't like that feeling, and I really want to feel compassion for him in a situation. What practical tools can I use to enhance my compassion? Thank you.
Well, first of all, of course, it's natural. I mean, with our ordinary, conceptual thinking, to feel satisfied when something bad happens to someone who is not good, right? We thought, aha, this is, karma for you. So even the Tibetans have this idea, they have a text called the Wheel of Sharp Weapons. And so they say, this is the wheel of sharp weapons returning, right? And everybody thinks, aha, he got his come up, right? But the fact that this person feels uncomfortable with this instinctive response means that you're already feeling compassion, right? Because otherwise people wouldn't even question it. They would think that was right to feel, good about somebody's suffering. So we have to recognize that people do bad things because they are enslaved to their ego and to their negative emotions like anger and greed and so forth like this. So how sad. Yes, it is sad, right? So they are not only are they getting, creating problems for others, but they are also planting very negative seeds for themselves. And this will come up in the future or even now as a poisonous plant. If you plant poisonous seeds, you're going to get a poisonous plant, So, oh, dear me. So then that will probably cause them to do even worse things, right? And so they get caught in this vicious circle, right? And that is indeed, it's not difficult in that case to feel compassion for their situation because they are creating so many negative forces which they themselves they will meet in the future, and then they will probably, because of their habitual patterns, again, express this very negatively and make more bad karma. And so it goes round and round and round and round and round. How sad, So compassion does not mean that we condone or approve of others' bad actions. Of course we don't. I mean, it's not, if you forgive somebody or if you let go of your resentment, it doesn't mean that you think what they did was right. It was not right. And they are suffering, others are suffering, and it's a bad case altogether. But because we can see the causes and the conditions and how this is going to just keep repeating this cycle into many future lifetimes also, we can feel compassion because they are totally motivated by their ignorance and by their negative emotions, and how very sad they cause problems for themselves. They've got to cause problems for others. So therefore, we are simply sorry that they are causing all this trouble, not only to others, but also to themselves, and in that way, compassion arises, right? I mean, that's the point, right? That she already has the compassion because she's saying that although she naturally feels, oh, good, then they deserve it, nonetheless, she knows that's not really the right kind of reaction to have. And that, we can think a bit further ahead and see what a sad situation it is for everybody. So she's already on the right track.
Thank you. Carmen from Madrid, thank you for this opportunity. From your personal experience, what do you think is the key to success in Lojong? What is it that really transforms us? And what do you think are the factors that most often hinder our spiritual development? Thank you.
Well, I think that the key to Lojong, personally, I think the key for Lojong is to take everything onto the path, right? And to realize that the so-called obstacles and difficulties may be our greatest spiritual opportunities. This is the message in the Lojong, right? So we don't have to reject anything, right? Everything can be made useful for us. So this, if we think like that, that anything which appears on the path, we will deal with it, right? Then this gives us courage, because we are not caught up in the hope that everything will go the way I want it to go, right? And the fear that it won't, right? We are always hoping everything, we have our ideas of how things should be, and then maybe they're not going to be like that. So then we are caught up between hope and fear, anxiety, right? One time, a friend of mine, one time a friend of mine, she wanted something very much and it wasn't happening, and she was very upset. And our Indian manager, he said, "Madam is wanting, but madam is not getting." And that summed it up, well, so you have to accept it. I want this, but it's not going to happen. So then what then? So when things are good, that is nice. And when things are not good, that is also okay too, because that's where we're going to work, right? Difficult people and difficult situations are the opportunity to pay more attention and to practice. So sometimes I say it's like if you go to a gymnasium, right? We all have flabby muscles, flabby arms and legs. You get on a machine which challenges us, right? You see people in gymnasiums, sweat pouring down. They pay for it, right? They don't want an easy machine. An easy machine's no use, right? If they want strong muscles, they have to work out, right? So life is our workout, right? We're going to have to deal. Sometimes we rest. We're not always on the machines, but sometimes we need to push ourselves beyond our comfort zone. Otherwise, we end up spiritually flabby. We can only be nice Dharma people when everything goes well. The minute we come across obstacles, we fall apart. Then that's no use, right? So Lojong is very good for that. Lojong really gets us think of all the horrible things which could happen, how to deal with them, and use it, make use of it all, so that we don't end up just really feeling. I mean, I remember one time I went to see this very traditional Lama. I mean, this is not just some new age philosophy. A very traditional Lama, and I was telling him all the problems I was having, all the obstacles. And he said, if you say obstacle, it's an obstacle. If you say opportunity, it's an opportunity. It's up to you. And that's the essence of Lojong, right? Take everything on the path. So I don't know, I've said here that perhaps for many people, one of the main problems is the belief in results, like enlightenment, as a kind of distant goal against which we judge ourselves, right? We're always thinking, oh, this is, I've got to get enlightened. How soon will I be enlightened? People always ask that. How long will it take? And if you say, well, probably many lifetimes, what? Right? So I don't usually tell people. So then we ask ourselves, is this working? We're practicing, is this working? Right? Am I getting better? What's the time? Have I improved? And that doesn't work. I mean, the point is step by step by step, we are walking on the path. And sometimes we fall down. That's okay. We stand up again, right? And just keep walking. So as long as we keep standing up and carry on walking, then we are still on the path, right? So my feeling is that we should relax and not make the Dharma into an extra burden in our life. right? Sometimes people get very tense and too strict, and they're always endlessly looking at themselves for faults and judging themselves harshly the whole time because they're not coming up to the level of an 8th level bodhisattva. I mean, all the texts are talking about 8th level bodhisattvas. Come on, we're not 8th level bodhisattvas. We're not even on the first bhumi. We're just ordinary sentient beings trying to do the best we can, right? And that's as good as we're going to get. And gradually, slowly, you know, we begin to understand a bit more, begin to respond a little better. And sometimes we don't. And then, oh, sorry, we try again. You know, I mean, that's the whole point, right? So it's, you know, we shouldn't make the Dharma into an extra burden, like carrying a backpack full of rocks up a mountain. You know, it's not like that. The Dharma should make our life lighter, right? And more meaningful. So sometimes I say it's like the yeast in the dough. You have this big lump of dough, very heavy. We don't throw the dough away. We just mix it with a little bit of yeast, and then the whole dough lightens. So we can cook it and eat it. So that's the point. The dough is our everyday life, our family, our relationships, our work, whatever we're doing. That's our heavy dough, which normally is very heavy. But if we mix it with the yeast of awareness and good heart and Lojong practice, the Dharma, we mix it all together with the dough, then the dough lightens. We don't throw the dough away. We need the dough, right? The dough is what is going to nourish us. So, but we need the yeast, right? So a little bit of yeast goes a long way. And that's what Lojong is about how to integrate Dharma into our daily life, to make our whole life meaningful and our whole life of Dharma practice.
Thank you. Our next question from Blanca from Mexico City. Could you please explain the importance of living with an ethical conduct of body, speech, and mind in a world dominated by the 8 mundane dharmas?
Well, obviously, the basic ethics which were laid down by the Buddha are the 5 basic precepts. And the interesting thing is the precepts of, you know, not killing, not stealing, not indulging in sexual misconduct, not lying or harsh speech, and not engaging in intoxicants to confuse the mind. These basic precepts are as important and as pertinent today in the West as it was 2,600 years ago in Asia. I mean, the point is they haven't changed. It's not to do with what you're wearing. It's not to do with what you're eating. It's not to do with any external cultural ideas. It's to do with how to live in this world harmlessly, not causing any harm. Even if we can't help, at least we're not hurting anyone. Everyone in our presence can trust us because we will not do anything which could hurt them, including animals, including insects, including every being. They can feel safe with us, right? These are very profound precepts, actually. So, you know, it's the first, to my mind, it's the first step towards sane living, right? How to live. I mean, if all the world just kept these 5 precepts, it would be a completely different world, right? I mean, if all the Buddhists would just keep the 5 precepts, it would be a different world. So the precepts are like a fence. They're like a fence around the garden of the heart, in which we are trying to grow the Bodhi tree. And so the first thing is that all the wild animals shouldn't come in and eat the little sapling that we're trying to water and cultivate. So first we have to protect it. And so our practice, our very incipient practice, needs protection, and the protection comes from leading an ethical life. We cultivate integrity, right? So that what we are thinking, is what we are saying, is what we are doing. The Buddha himself said, one thing that can be said for me, I have integrity. So he doesn't say one thing and do another. He doesn't think one thing and say another. Everything is together in harmony. Then the mind becomes peaceful, right? If we are keeping pure ethical conduct, not just with our body and speech, but also in our mind, then the mind has no sense of regret, and it has no guilt and remorse, because we are doing the best we can to lead an ethical life and cause no harm to anyone. So that makes the mind quiet, just that. And then that helps with our formal practice, you know, our sitting practice, because we're not being hypocrites. I think it's very important not to be hypocritical. And so our mind helps our body and speech. Our body and speech also help the mind. And so we become whole. And this is very, very important. Ethics are very important. And Buddhist ethics in their basicness is very simple, right? I mean, each one makes sense. You know, we shouldn't kill, because every being, to each being, their own self is most dear, as the Buddha said. You know, even a fly or mosquito, their life is the most precious thing they have. Who told us we can just take it? You know, we wouldn't like someone from aliens from outer space to come and say, oh, what those funny little pink two-footed things, squish. You know, we would be very upset. And so to each one, their own life is most dear. So we should, as we honor our life, we should honor the life of others, and not to take other people's property, because we don't want someone to come in and take our property. And likewise, if we borrow something, to give it back in as good condition as we got it, at least. And then, you know, not to use our sexual energy in a way which could cause any harm to others or exploit others, using other people's body purely for one's own satisfaction without considering the other person is a very pure and precious being with their own feelings and their own needs. And we should respect that and be trustworthy and not exploit others. And then to be truthful, and not just truthful, but kind and non-divisive. And that we should, you know, use our speech, which is an incredible gift as we have as humans, in an intelligent way to bring happiness to somebody's mind, and not to bring disharmony, especially in a family or in a community, to bring people together. People can trust you because you're going to be truthful and you're not going to be abusive, and so forth. So to be responsible, it's all about being responsible. And then intoxicants like alcohol and drugs, because they cause us to lose control of the mind, you know, and people, you know, do things, you know, under the influence of alcohol and drugs, which they would never do when they're sober. And it usually brings out the worst in people, not the best. And so these are very sensible ethical conduct, at least that much to live a good and wholesome life. That much we can do. And so, yeah, ethics are really very important, right? You know, and we can all do that. We don't have to make a big thing of it, you know, to everybody else, but within ourselves, that is our guidelines on how to live in this world in order not to cause harm to others or to ourselves, because all these, if you break the precepts, you are harming yourself as well as others.
Thank you. Our next question is from Amy from Montevideo, Uruguay. After so many years in retreat, what were the transformational discoveries while you were in the cave? And what advice what's your advice to beginners who are still attached to other beings and are forced to engage in other activities besides practicing Dharma?
Well, that's the first question. My feeling when I left the cave was that I was 12 years older. And in the meantime, had learned how to grow turnips and potatoes, which I never knew before. As to the second, then we should examine the nature of our attachment and clinging, which is the source of suffering, according to the Buddha. You know, we think that by being attached and holding tight to someone, this will be the source of our happiness. And the Buddha said, no, that's the source of our suffering. So when we really understand that connection, then we can practice loving kindness and caring for others. I mean, the Buddha never said not to love, right? And we are confusing love and attachment. So we need to practice love and caring for others, but without the grasping part. You know, it's the grasping aspect which is the problem. I mean, sometimes I say it's like if you had a butterfly on your hand, then you would think, oh, what a beautiful butterfly, you know, I protect you, I'll care for you, look at you. And you keep him like that. But if you think, oh, what a beautiful butterfly, oh, and you're all mine, I'll take care of you. No butterfly. You've killed the butterfly. And that's what attachment does, it kills. And that's why it causes suffering. So sometimes I say that, you know, people say, what's the difference between love and attachment? And I say, attachment says, I love you and I want you to make me happy. And love says, I love you and I want you to be happy. And that's the difference. You know, I mean, if we expect the other person to make us happy, then we're grasping at them. We're not allowing them to be themselves. If genuine love wants the happiness of the other, if that includes me, that's great. If it doesn't include me, well, never mind, you're happy. And that's what makes the difference. That's my happiness depends on your happiness. So we should allow others to be themselves without trying to own them. The problem is that, you know, attachment wants to grasp and own something. Parents are especially bad at this. So love is really, really essential and important in our life, but not attachment. It's this clinging, which is the problem, right? It's the grasping. So anyway, so if we carry out our activities every day with this loving, open-hearted awareness and mindfulness, and we cultivate the paramitas wherever is possible, then our daily life becomes our Dharma practice. If we've not said anything in this talk, that much you must understand, that we have to have loving awareness, practice the paramitas, and use our daily life as our practice, right? It becomes the Dharma. The Dharma is that. Right? Dharma is not just formal meditation and doing things which we think are kind of spiritual. I mean, really and truly, it's everyday life led with mindfulness and a good heart. That's the important thing, right? You know, we are trying to wake up because we're all dreaming the dream of ignorance. And we have to use everything in order to wake up, right? We can't just rely on a few minutes, you know, at the beginning of the day meditation. That's not enough. We have to take our everyday life and transform it into our Dharma.
Beautiful, thank you. Our next question is from Angeles, from Lisa de Mun, Spain. Precious teacher, I feel that it's harder for those of us who have only been for a short time in this deep path of awakening to be able to reach the states of a calm and clear mind. However, at the same time, I feel that with discipline and good motivation, we will be able to achieve it. It's really the moments when samsara shakes us up that we lose stability, especially for beginners like myself. What can you recommend so that we can still remain firm as a rock when we're faced with adversity? My deepest gratitude.
Yeah, well, again, we're back to the same problem, right? So, I would say that they should read again and again texts on Lojong especially, right? How to cope with adversity. It's the Lojong texts are especially about all the horrible things which can happen and how to turn that into a Dharma opportunity. So read that and think about it. Samsara is an ocean, right? The ocean of samsara. On the surface of the ocean, there are waves. And waves go up, waves go down. It's the nature of waves to go up and down. And so that is why, so we are caught on the surface, right? And we are caught in these waves. And so we go up and we go down, sometimes up, sometimes down. So this is why the Dharma is described as a boat, right? To carry us to the other shore, right? Often the Buddha described the Dharma as a raft to carry us across the ocean of samsara. Now, in order to make progress along, as a boat, we need the momentum of the waves and wind, right? That's what drives the boat across to the other shore. So we should think that therefore that is an obstacle to getting to the other shore. It actually becomes the reason, the motivation to get us there. So therefore we appreciate that these challenges in our life are our opportunity to practice. This is the main message of Lojong. We shouldn't think that everything has to be smooth, right? Sometimes the more turbulence, the faster we move, right? So I would say study all the skillful means that we can use to help us on the journey, right? And so sometimes naturally we're shaken, it's not that we can, then we bring ourselves back and we reflect on that experience, and we think, how can I do better next time? Right? Where did I go wrong that time? I kind of floundered and fell into the water. How can I manage better next time? When I was one time in Malaysia thinking about boats, I saw this T-shirt and it had these big waves, and on top of the waves was a surfboard, and sitting on the surfboard was someone in meditation, and the slogan said, riding the waves of life, be mindful, be happy. I thought, well, we should really get that for our nunnery. I mean, it's a great, but that's it. If you're a surfer, you want big waves, right? To balance. You're learning how to balance on these big waves. You don't want a placid lake, right? If you have a placid lake, then you're never going to be a surfer. So a bodhisattva welcomes the waves of life, right? Because that's where that's the movement to move them forward. That's the impetus behind it all. So, when we fall down, we just stand up again. The only time it's a problem is when we go down and we think that's it, and we never try to get back up. But as the Dalai Lama says, our slogan is never give up. So, study Lojong, understand what Lojong is trying to tell us. and just keep going step by step. Or swimming. No, don't swim. Get in the boat. It's easier.
Thank you so much, Jisuma, for all your wisdom. I'm so happy that my Dharma friends had this chance to see you and receive your teachings, clarify their doubts, and receive a lot of inspiration and a lot of hints as to how to apply Lojong practice in their daily lives. So it's wonderful.
Lamala, they don't need me. They have you. I mean, I really, they don't need anything more. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for all that
And
you are doing to help.
please take good care of yourself, and we will keep you in your mind and in our mind, and also all your nuns there in India. It's a wonderful project, and hopefully in the future we do a pilgrimage. We'll stop by and visit.
Oh, please do. You're all very welcome. You're all very welcome to Dunjagatsaling. And Himachal Pradesh in itself is the best state in India. And we're about 2 hours from Dharamshala, where the Dalai Lama resides. And also about 3 or 4 hours from Solpema, which is the sacred lake of Guru Padmasambhava. And there are many monasteries in this area, and you're all very, very welcome to come for a visit. Please do.
Very good. Thank you so much again, Jitsuman. Now we'll do a short prayer to dedicate the merit for this wonderful meeting. Through this virtue may I attain the state of all-knowing one and thereby overcome all limitations. May I liberate beings from the ocean of existence where the waves of birth, old age, disease, and death surge violently. I share whatever merits I have gained in the practice of the holy Dharma of the great vehicle, so that all beings are fortunate to find the pure and precious Dharma. Through my power, may all evil forces, doctrines of extreme views, various forms of falsified dharmas, and all other harms that befall sentient beings be completely eradicated. May all beings throughout the lives and the worlds attain an inexhaustible merit and wisdom, and thereby become the inexhaustible treasury of all the qualities of skillful means, wisdom, samadhis, and powers. Very good. Thank you so much for all your team there to help.
Thank you.
And we'll be in touch.
Please say thank you to all the translators and everybody who's worked so hard to put this up behind the scenes there. Really, thank you very, very much. Very, very kind.
Thank you. Muchas gracias a